Those early days at Fluoro must have been some buzz, man. Like you've taken the leap, you've kind of set up, and it was like, okay, let's make the most of this. But like, what were the early days like?
How many people are at your agency? And it was kind of like that bit in Home Alone 2, and he was just like, "Son, it's me."
Then that energy and the timing it to music and stuff. I was going to ask you about this actually. So you're also a drummer, right? You've been in bands, you've kind of toured around and like done festivals and drummer. I think that comes through in your work a little bit, like especially with the Fluoro stuff, which we're going to come on to. The way you edit and kind of like put it to beats and transitions and the type glitches, and like that's a big part of bringing it all together, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think some of the early projects we done at Fluoro.
Welcome back to Sparks TV. So as you can see, something a bit different today. We're in a new podcast studio, and this is episode 1 of a new podcast series that I'm doing, and today's guest is none other than Rocksteady himself, Eddie Caldwell. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
Mate, you're flying at the top of your game with Fluoro, like a new age branding and advertising agency, designing for clients like Snoop Dogg, Beats by Dre, Sweaty Betty, Adidas, Sky Sports, the list goes on. But do you know what, I've said too much, so just let's roll the tape. Are you ready to run the gauntlet?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's rewind the clock and take it back to where it all began. So Ed, question 1. What sparked your interest in graphic design?
So, I mean, I guess I was always, as a kid, I was always sort of artistic, loved drawing and stuff, and then I kind of channeled that in a few ways, but one of the things that I really got into was like designing football strips. So I used to like get my dad to like, I'd draw a template and get my dad to take it in his work and photocopy it, and I'd get all the templates of the top, bottom, the shorts and the socks, and then I'd design like Celtic strips, Man U strips. Just kind of loved doing that, and then even so much so, I went to go to my mate's house to watch like the Mighty Ducks, and the film would end and they'd be like in the other room with like a golf club and a pair of socks, you know, and I'd be like, have you got any felt tip pens so I can design a new Mighty Duck strip? So yeah, I was always sort of kind of like into drawing and stuff like that. And then at school, my favourite subjects were always like art, music, graphics. It was always those 3 things. Even so much in sort of 6th year at school, I just chose to do just those 3 subjects for like advanced higher and all those. So because I only had 3 subjects, I had like 13 free periods. So I'd spend like a quarter of them in the art department. I'd spend like a quarter of them playing poker with my mates and losing all my money. And then I'd spend like the other half in like the graphics department. And luckily there was a teacher there who, he wasn't actually my teacher, but he ran the department, and he noticed like I had an interest in it. So he sort of showed me the basics of Adobe Suite. He gave me some books, which was like Neville Brody, David Carson, and like I was just kind of like amazed. This was like the first time I'd ever seen anything like this. Just like pages full of like experimental, cool design, breaking the rules, all that sort of stuff, and that's how I really kind of got into it. It was kind of got handed those 2 things at the same time. Here's this thing called Adobe, and here's some books by these masters of design that are doing some cool stuff. And at that point, it was, I think I said to you before, I was thinking about my next steps, and I had applied to go to like college to study graphic design, and like the night before, the day before the UCAS forms had to be handed to my teacher, my art teacher was like, what unis are you applying to? And I was like, I'm not applying to any unis. And she was like, what? So she drags me along the corridor to the head of the art department, and she's like, he's not applying to uni. And he's like, what? She's like, right, get your arse in into my class. We've got to get your reforms printed off. You've got to go home tonight, fill them out. So I did that, and then, that was kind of the next steps from there. But then to get into art school and stuff, you had to do sketchbooks. So like I had that starting point of like these Neville Brody and Dave Castner. Really got into them, and like all of my stuff in my sketchbook was all influenced by that, and it been a bit experimental and kind of following that. So yeah, that's basically kind of like from the early days of being a kid and kind of being into art and stuff, and then kind of like later on at school how I kind of found that kind of interest in design.
Wow. So yeah, you had that kind of early days at high school, loving design, Neville Brody, Carson, all that, experimental design. You kept the Man United thing quiet, which I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Also, Mighty Ducks, phenomenal, like one of the best childhood shows ever. So yeah, the uni detour. So you had an interview at Glasgow School of Art. What happened?
So it was going well, and then they sort of asked me, so why do you want to come to Glasgow School of Art? And like my main answer was a bit naive and a bit too honest, but at the time I was like, well, I said it's close to home, so it means I don't need to get into thousands of pounds worth of debt. And then they turned around and went, that's a terrible answer. And I was thinking, yeah, probably isn't the best answer. And if I heard that in an interview now, I'd be like, get out the door. But at the time, you're young, you're thinking of these bigger things in your life of like, I don't want to get into thousands of pounds of debt, and that's more important than the reputation of an art school. But obviously it is a great art school, and that was a kind of obvious answer that I just sort of thought, well, you know that one, I'll skip that one, and just sort of trying to give them a bit of insight about me and where I was from. It was more that sort of thing, and they read too much into it the other way, which is fair enough. But yeah, I
think it's a bit harsh though, so to be fair, because like I literally applied to Duncan and Johnson and only there because of that exact reason. Oh, but I didn't have an interview though.
Yeah.
But I probably would have said something similar because that was my main reason.
Yeah, and if it's probably one of those things that everyone thinks and just doesn't say, but yeah, it just came out.
but I rate that so much, mate. Like just honest and kind of transparent and maybe a bit naive, but like I think it's quite interesting. So that then led you to taking the Duncan and Johnson path, which was moving city, somewhere new, like different, going across to the East Coast. Had you ever been to Dundee before?
Never. Nah, the first time I went was to drop my portfolio off, and I only found out the day before that I'd been accepted to hand my folio in. So my parents drove me to Glasgow that morning. We went to an art shop, picked up a portfolio case. We were 10 minutes outside of Dundee by the river, stopped at a bench, and I was literally sliding every single bit of work I had into these portfolio cases. We got to the uni, the front doors were locked, the whole place was locked, and I was like wandering around the back of the uni. Luckily I seen a janitor, and I was like, I'm really sorry, mate, can you do me a solid and open these doors for me? I'm like 10 minutes late for this portfolio handing in. So he comes round and he opens the door, and I go in and I drop it off, and then luckily I got in from there. But yeah,
that's mental.
It's playing it close.
I can't, but again, like the most on the ball guy ever, and then you've just randomly picking up a folio on the day. It's blown into the Tay. Like, your whole folio is just going into the Tay with the wind.
The windiest city in Scotland.
I can't believe it. Like, what is going on? So, like, obviously, that went well. You got accepted, joined general course, and then moved into graphic design. Was it all, like, obviously you had a pretty clear idea that graphic design was your thing, right? That was kind of like the pathway you wanted to take. So yeah, like, how was it like? Because obviously I stayed at Dundee. I'm from Dundee. I studied there, so I never had that experience of like going to a new city.
Yeah. Like,
how was that? Was it like fresh start? Like, this is going to be cool? Was it a bit daunting, or were you just like, I'm right up for this?
Yeah, no, it was exciting. It was exciting just being living at home for years, and then it's like that point in your life, just going somewhere new, meeting new people, experiencing new things, like living somewhere new, and even just like living on your own without your parents and all that. And like, I think no matter what city you go to, everyone probably has that first experience for the first few months of just that excitement and feeling like they're on holiday and kind of this new experience. And actually, especially for us, because we chose a subject that we actually enjoyed, so it's like you go in every morning, you're actually like, the day goes so quick, you're actually enjoying what you do. It's not like you go in and you have to get your head into books and stuff. So like, yeah, I loved the whole experience of it from the start. And yeah, as well, like the first year was like a general art and design course, wasn't it? If I could have chose it, I would have just went straight into graphic design. But that first year was probably interesting in developing like other skills and generally being a bit more artistic.
So second year was great, right? We were kind of getting into it and like just finding your feet with graphic design. Third year comes round and the lecturers kind of hook us up with placements, interviews in Glasgow, kind of like to do kind of internships or like a 2-week placement sort of thing. And me and you both got matched with Atalanta. So we went through, did the interviews, all that, and we both got accepted to do 2-week placement. And you went first, and 2 weeks later I turn up and you're there as a freelancer already. What happened there? What did you do in those 2 weeks, mate?
I don't think I did. I don't think I did too much. I think I think they liked the sort of what I was doing, and they had a freelancer in there at the time, and I think they thought, oh, this new kid he's sort of doing good stuff, and he's working probably as fast or not faster as this other designer was. So I think they just thought, oh, we'll give it a go, and for them it was probably like, well, we can probably pay him half as much as I saw a freelancer, and for me I was probably like getting paid double, so it was like a good match.
It's like I couldn't believe it when I turned up and you were sitting there, but at the same time I was quite relieved as well, because like I was probably a bit nervous, even though it was like, you know, you're doing a free internship essentially for 2 weeks, and it's just like nothing to lose, all to gain. But at the same time, you do put a bit of pressure on yourself at that age, at that time, because your first sort of experience of like 9 to 5, and even for me, like coming through to Glasgow and like getting the train and stuff like that, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, like, so do you remember what you were working on as the freelance thing?
I do remember one of the jobs there, which was a bit dry, which was, you know, they had a hotel client. And you know, they get those signs on the back of the door and it's like the fire escapes. It was like one of the jobs was, can you draw a line from your room to the fire escape?
No way.
And you had to do that for every room.
What?
So that was a bit dry, that one. But there was a couple other ones in there as well that were a bit more interesting.
How many rooms?
How
many rooms?
I think I only did like 30 or something. Someone else must have got past it. Must have felt sorry for me. I mean, it's not the worst job I've ever been given as a intern.
What's the worst one?
The worst one was the worst one was, it wasn't even a job. It was some guy who worked there. He was getting married, and his wife had asked him to do some, like, you know, the stupid table things you get at weddings and the flowers and butterflies and that. So he'd probably been asked to do this, and he thought, oh, as an intern here, I'll just pass it on to him. So I was doing all this shit for this guy's wedding.
That's insane. Going into the final year, like looking back now, right? So final year, you've kind of leading up to your degree show. You know, a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves at that time, and it starts to kind of like feel a bit more competitive as well, I felt. But it felt like you were kind of like, you just cruised through, me. Like, it felt like you were just always on the, like, for example, I don't think anyone's ever written their dissertation in a week. But we have someone here who did, which is mind-blowing. But yeah, like, it seemed like you absolutely cruised through, like, you know, had a really good degree show. And do you remember any kind of key projects, or like, what do you think obviously it'd be different now, but at that time, what makes a good kind of final year project?
So I think the probably the good balance of every good project is like concept and execution, or like or craft, if you like. So I guess all the projects that I did, I tried to sort of put that into it. And I guess like probably one of the things I found more interesting, I was probably strongest at, was like typography. So I kind of leaned into that in my final year projects. So that was kind of a keen interest. But you probably almost got too much time on those projects. You got like the full 2 semesters, or the full year, if you like, just to do the project. So everyone just took a long time to get started on them, and you kind of went round in circles a little bit to start with. They'd probably be better sort of splitting into like 6 smaller projects, or like a half projects. But at the same time, it was nice to be able to, like, if you had an idea, kind of follow it through and kind of take it that step further and put the extra effort and all the rollout into it. But
it is mad how much time we got given on that, and I think it, to your point, like, it could almost lead you to like analysis paralysis, where you overthink it and like you just get kind of caught in your own head and you're like trying to invent some new element or something, right?
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you just kind of be a bit more impulsive, like I felt like the lecturers were really good at like driving this, like you need to be conceptual and everything comes after that you can craft into. So is there any like projects from that time that you would like to kind of highlight and kind of reflect back on?
So in terms of the concept one, I think there was a bit of packaging design I'd done for it. We done like a project and it was like a series of books about film themes. So I'd done like a little packaging thing for that, which was like a padded envelope, but I'd done it like a clackerboard, so it perforates along the edge that opens like that. So like when I showed that to some people in interviews, it kind of went down quite well. A lot of people were like, "Oh, it's such a simple idea, but I've never seen it before." So I think like any sort of ideas like that people are like, "Ah, oh, so obvious, so simple," but I hadn't thought about it. Like, so I tried to get a few things like that in my final year projects, and that was one of them. And then the other thing is just like kind of like execution, just like spending like a long time just crafting something really well and something you're happy with. So like I done a sort of logo type for the title of one of the exhibitions that I had. That was the title of the exhibition of the project. I think it was called Typographic Showcase. So the whole thing of that was like it was like lectures and exhibitions by design studios that I liked. So I done like kind of little posters for each one, but the main sort of identity for the festival was just kind of like putting typography up in light sort of thing. So I got kind of like this idea of like a neon tube sort of seamless logo type where all the sort of letter forms sort of kind of crushed into each other, and it was really about taking each individual letter form and seeing how it matched up with each other and how it could blend and how it could all sit in a nice balanced way. So yeah, I put a lot of sort of time and effort into that, and again probably going back to some of the references that I mentioned earlier, but Neville Brody used to do sort of Nike ads where he'd crush all the letters together and sort of do all this sort of stuff. So again, probably wasn't too far from still being influenced by all those things, and so it's like that kind of mixture of like some stuff leaning into the kind of nice clever ideas, and then other stuff where it's just like really nice execution and leaning into that.
Man, that's proper cool. Like it's cool to see that those kind of early influences from your kind of final year of high school sort of time coming through as well. Like I never knew that. That's mad.
And even probably the sort of envelope, the pad envelope ones, probably like there's like books like Smile in the Mind and all those ones that are kind of, you know, just these little things where people go, like that's nice.
Alan Fletcher.
But yeah, it's important. Like I think we had a great library at uni, because when we were there, it was before the days of like too many like. It wasn't before the internet, but there wasn't like crazy amounts of design blogs and all that you get these days, where you're just like instantly hit with like amazing influences all the time. Like you had to sort of, there was the agency websites that we all liked, and you could find that stuff, and you would go on there and you would find it, and you'd pass it around if you had this agency, but it was a little bit more underground because it wasn't all the blogs. There was a couple of blogs, and there was actually a really good Scottish one, wasn't there? Form 55.
Form 55, mate. Yeah.
That was great. And there was ones like that coming kind of emerging come through, but the library at uni was great. Like we found loads of great stuff there. What was the one? There was a typography one, and it was like they did like editions every year. Was it the typography?
Yeah, it rings a bell.
That one was really good. There was a few like sort of series of books that were, and I used to get them out and just kind of look through them, and that was like a great source of inspiration for all the projects we did.
Yeah.
And that was going back to the thing of getting too much time on a project. You're still like educating yourself and learning and developing as a designer, so you still need to have those pauses and reflections, and you can't just be head down on I'm creating. You need to be like, oh, I've got this project, I've got this beauty of having this time to go and find these books and get my head into that, or go off and do something that's not related to design, but you get like little influences here and there from things that because you've paused and you've got time to reflect and time to go and find influences from other places. I think that was the nice thing about those final year projects.
Do you know what's so cool though? Like, see, like at that time, like we're all quite fresh to it, right? And there's so many, like graphic design's broken out into all these different disciplines really, and you can go down so many different angles, whether it's more advertising led like the D&AD stuff, more art direction, even a bit more illustration, or mainly type. Our uni was really big on type and the kind of Swiss masters and all that. But like it felt to me that you were really tuned into type, Whereas like I was kind of like I'll try a bit of this, try a bit of that, just kind of finding my way around it.
Yeah.
But you had that, like, you just had that sort of click with type from the jump, it felt like.
Yeah, probably, and I guess it was a way of like twisting it for each project. So one project was like a book design where all the layouts and stuff like that. That was what was different about it. And then another project where I created 3D type out of like stop motion. So I built like a word out of Lego, and I did a stop motion on it, and it took like 13 hours to make.
Wow.
I did another one where I made letters out of wood, and then I vacuum formed plastic around the wood to make a template. Then I filled that with water, made ice, and then I filmed the ice melting, so then reversed it so the typography created itself out of water. Sorry.
Do you not do one with bread as well, where you baked it in the oven?
Baked it in the oven, took it out every minute, filmed, put it back in the same spot.
Mate, that's so cool.
So like, even stuff like that, even the projects that were nothing to do with type, they were based on type, you know.
Did we not do one? I came to the Broughty Ferry Beach with you one time.
That's
and
right.
You did one for sea, and it was like kind of getting washed up on the shore. And it was like, was it June? Was it the month of June, that one?
I think so,
or
yeah.
May?
No, I think it was June. I think.
Oh, mate, it's still got it.
Yeah, so it was definitely a keen interest for sure.
I think as well, like, see the ISTD one, like the airports one, that was mega. Like, so we kind of did like ISTD, like it was just like interpreting a theme or a brief just with type, mainly with type. There was a bit of infographics and stuff, right? But that went really well. And did you not get like awards or something? Like,
yeah, so I got like a commendation, it was called.
Yeah.
Which was, I remember when the tutors commented in their office, and they were like, we've been doing this for like, I can't remember how long, like a lot of years. And they're like, we've had some great designers, but only one person has ever got a commendation, and like you're the second. And I was like, wow, that's great, because obviously there was a couple of the 2 years above us, we had been to their degree shows, obviously, and seen like how good the work was. And I remember like at the time thinking, oh god, and whenever like we get here, like never going to be as good as this. Like it was like we were like, this is so good.
it felt like the jump went up massive, innit? Like, when you
yeah,
went to
exactly.
degree show.
When you got to that, and it was just like, wow, how have they created all this amazing work? So like to hear that come back and my work kind of got that award, I was like, wow, this is great.
Were you a bit shocked?
It was a confidence boost for sure.
Were you shocked, or were you kind of like?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know it was such a thing as a commendation, because I remember thinking there was like a thing below, there's another thing called merit.
Yeah.
I remember like the year before there was like 3 or 4 people got a merit. I was thinking, oh, that's cool, you know, like merit. And then they were like, oh, there's this other thing called a commendation, which even, because there was only 2 people in Britain that got that, so that was quite good.
Was
so
it
we
you
came
and
down
Neville
to,
Brody, aye?
came down to London, and there was like a little award ceremony and all that, so that was nice.
Well, so you had the commendation, the merit, and you also had the pass. I got the pass. Mate, that's so cool. Like, so that's mad. Like, commendation, only 2 people in the whole of Duncan and Johnson. Like, you were.
I don't know if people might have had it since, but at the time there was only one other person that had done it, but in the past, yeah.
That's mad. So obviously, like, degree show is such a big thing, right? You kind of put a lot of pressure on yourself, and then it's this kind of like, it feels like it's a big event, like in your milestone, right? You're kind of, you know, leading up to graduation. You're putting your work out there for everyone to see. You know, your family's coming down, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, it went really well. And then I guess after that, it's a case of like, okay, that was fine. That was fun. I've kind of earned my stripes here a little bit, foundation and design. But the real challenge is trying to get your first job, really, innit? So, like, for you, was it a case of like, okay, I want to stay in Scotland, or let's get straight down to London or somewhere else? Like, what was your sort of plans at the time?
I think my initial plan was Glasgow. Like,
Right.
that was my first port of call. I thought I'd like to move to Glasgow, so I started by sending my work to a few studios in Glasgow, and then I think similar to what you said in a previous episode, you just never really heard back.
Were you getting ghosted?
Yeah, I got ghosted.
No way.
From pretty much everyone in Glasgow, but I get it. Like we get photos in all the time, and I get it now. Like at the time when you're a student, you're always a bit like, oh, why is no one replying to me? And it's not that your work's not good.
Just people are busy.
People are busy, and like there's so much other stuff on people's plates,
Yeah.
especially the people who make decisions in design agencies to get people in. If you just need to be lucky and send it in at the right time as they're looking for someone, and that's when you will get a reply. But yeah, it's like a game of numbers, isn't it? Like I think when you apply in London, you're talking, instead of 8 companies in Glasgow, you've got like 80 in London. Well, that probably applied to. So you're talking 10 times more chance of getting a reply. So I think it was just that, but I never really pursued it much further than that, because I got offered to like an interview in London. So, and then I happened to be at the same time, because I was down for New Blood, we arranged it for that week.
Yeah.
So that worked out sort of good.
So mate, New Blood, obviously, like that's quite an exciting sort of thing as well. I didn't really go to it, so I just heard it was like this mad buzz. It's basically degree show again, but like down there, and it's not just your own uni, it's all the other unis at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So it's proper full on, really competitive, and a great buzz. So, like you graduated in 2009, right? So,
Yep.
like at that time, was it a case of like it was just massive vibes, like sunshine, good times, all that sort of stuff, or was it was also a recession as well, right? So you had to deal with that, which is like, is there a bit of an opportunity there with like younger designers, or is that like, did you feel the sort of burn on that as well?
I think so. Yeah, first of all, New Blood was great, and I think what I noticed was when we were down there was, out of all the unis, like our uni in general, like our whole course, like in terms of like the team of people in our course, like it really stood up, and it was like one of the best stands for sure. So like that was good, because it was like, oh, actually, like I was expecting to go down there and everyone would be exactly the same level as Duncan Johnson, but actually I learned that Duncan Johnson's actually got a really good reputation, and a lot of people were coming just to see our stand.
Really?
For sure, from other places, and there was a couple other ones as well, a couple other unis that were like really strong as well. But yeah, that was really good. But yeah, I loved when I came down from the blood, it was also like a heat wave at the time. It was like 30. I remember the front paper of the Sun, it was like 39 degrees on the thermometer. 39, yeah. So it was like crazy hot, and I was like, whoa, this is mental. And then we were staying in a hostel in like Hammersmith, with like 10 of us in the room. And it was literally you're popping your head out the window to get a bit of air. So it was a bit weird. It felt like I was on holiday, and with all my mates, and we were all going out and having a good time. We were even sitting on Brick Lane one day, and we got asked if we wanted to be in an MTV video.
What? No way.
Yeah. So it was just like fun times, like just out having like.
Did you go in the video?
Brick Lane. No, we had to go home.
Gutted.
But yeah, it was like a really fun few days. And yeah, lined up like a couple interviews. So did that, but it was like the interview was in East London, but I had to meet everyone, so I had to go on the tube with like jeans, because I was, you got an interview and you're like, oh, I'll have to wear jeans and a shirt.
Yeah.
So you sort of had that on like on the tube from like Hammersmith all the way to like East London, and then go back all the way to Hammersmith, drop my folio, and then go back. So I was sitting on the tube for about 4 hours that day in the 39 degrees heat, and I was like, this is wild. But yeah, no, it was fun. And then in terms of getting a job, so it was like a lot of the sort of things I was hearing was like a lot of people were making redundancies and stuff due to recession. So I think kind of everyone in our year was really just all doing internships and really struggling to get much further than that. So yeah, it was tricky for sure.
Yeah, it must have been hard. So
most places were kind of saying like when I eventually did internships, they were like, yeah, your work's great and we'd love to keep you on for a bit longer, but we've actually just made like 5 people redundant like recently, so it's like we just don't have the budgets.
I mean, that's so tough. Like that whole situation is really hard, but also like you're kind of like coming down. You've just graduated, like probably limited funds, like but you've got to try and make something happen. Like some internships might be paid, some might be really low paid, might be unpaid.
Yeah.
Like how long did you kind of intern for? Like, and was there any key standout places?
I think it was probably like 7 or 8 months in there.
Was it?
Yeah, I think I'd done quite a few. And as you say, like the cost of living in London versus that, so like a few places I said to them, like I said I'd love to come in, but like it just the money wasn't quite enough. And then they sort of like realised, oh, actually, maybe we need to put that money up a little bit for interns, especially if you're working on live stuff.
Yeah.
So they kind of agreed with that, and they were like, oh yeah, so actually going forward we're going to pay everyone a little bit more, which is good. But yeah, there's quite a few good internships I've done. There was one actually. It was like a small agency. There was only like 3 or 4 people, so they had me and like a freelancer at the time. And I remember at the end of the day, me and this freelancer working on the same project, and they were like, all right, can you just stick on the board like what you've been doing? So he prints off like a couple of like pages of scamps, they're all a bit rough, and then I like stick up like 10 A3 pages of like these logo designs that were all like full colour and single colour versions, and they were a bit like, wow, I'd clearly gone too far, but they found it quite funny, and they actually like wound up the freelancer being like, oh, come on, you need to up your game here. But after that, they were like, actually, no, like it made me look like a safe pair of hands. So then they kind of got me back and gave me a bit more money to stay on a bit longer and stuff. So that was quite good.
Mate, that's unbelievable. Absolute machine from day one. That freelancer must have been raging, eh?
Yeah, I know. I feel a bit bad for him there. But there was also like, yeah, it was great because although it was tricky. Obviously at the time I just wanted a full-time job and I just wanted to get paid and earn a bit of money to like pay for my way. But it was actually a good experience to like try out all these companies. Like I did some companies that were like 70, 80 people, some companies that were like 2 or 3. So it was a good balance of seeing how everyone operated and like finding out all the things that were kind of consistent in the industry and all the things that were actually unique to that company, and just sort of figuring out like each ways of working. And it probably like, definitely like learned a lot by just trialing out different agencies at the same time.
So like, see, at that time, like, did you have an idea that you wanted to be in more small places, or were you kind of like, I want to actually go in the big places, or was it just a case of like, let me just test them out and then see how I feel?
I think before I started, I probably wanted to work at some of the bigger agencies, but it was probably based on looking at their website, looking at their work and seeing all the big name clients and all the exciting like award-winning work. But actually, when you go in there, especially as an intern, obviously you're playing a small part, so you feel a little bit like you feel like you're not really adding much value, and you feel like you're not getting much out of it. Whereas when you go into a smaller agency, like you tend to be working more on live projects that are actually getting put forward and going ahead. So like you feel like it's a little bit more of an enjoyable experience. You feel a little bit more part of the team. So I enjoyed that, and that's probably what led me wanting to find more of those sort of smaller agencies and less of the bigger agencies. But I'm sure the advantage of the big agencies is like once you're in there for a bit of time, like there's so many people to learn from, and like great designers and like learning all the processes and like ways of working and stuff. So there's definitely advantages to both, but it's just finding where you want to sit, and like whether you want to go to a big agency and bide your time, and then eventually like in 3 or 4 years time you'll get to that point where you're actually kind of doing a bit more of the decent heavy lifting work, or whether you want to just go in and do that from day one and just get your hands dirty. And that's kind of like what I wanted to do.
Yeah, you kind of do learn more, I think. It's tricky. You do learn different things in different places, right? But it does feel to me like when you're in a small studio in those early days, you do learn so much because you are getting tested live. Yeah. You're not really getting sheltered. You're kind of like you're on the pitch. Yeah. Like you're straight in there, and you're getting thrown in.
You get more time with the creative directors because they're there sat up with you, whereas some of the other bigger agencies, they're not even on the same floor as you, and you're just kind of getting a little bit more of that kind of feedback, seeing what everyone's working on a bit more, whereas sometimes with bigger agencies, you're kind of just like, you got this project, you just sort of, it's already been through the mill, and you're just kind of adding this little extra wee bit on the end.
Yeah.
So.
Do you remember any of the sort of the big names or the names that you were kind of drawn to at that time? Because, 2009 is like, it feels like it was yesterday probably. Yeah. But also it was like, 16 years ago or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 16 years ago.
That's mad. You've been here for 16 years
16 years, yeah. So like when I first came down, it was before like smartphones and stuff. So like I used to like have all these interviews, and I'd like the night before I'd have to like get my laptop up and like sketch the maps of all the different design studios, like from like the nearest tube station to the office, and I'd be there the next day like this, like looking up and trying to like figure out street names and stuff.
Did you find it?
So I actually found most of them. There was one day I got so lost and I was so late, and I should have phoned them and I never, and I felt really bad about it. But yeah, it was just, I thought there was a train station, right? I phoned my mate and I was like, he'd been there before, and I said, right, it's by this train station, but it wasn't. It was from Farringdon, and it was the meat market. I thought it was a train station, so my bearings were all off from thinking the meat market was a train station.
God.
And then I just went round in circles for a while. Yeah, I should have just phoned them, and I was just like, I didn't. Yeah, I kind of was.
So did you eventually find it then? And like,
I eventually found it. Yeah.
Right.
Got the internship, so it was all good.
Do you know what's mad, right? So like, I was chatting to a young designer like a couple of weeks ago. I was chatting to him about this idea of doing the podcast and stuff, and he came through at North, like a top agency, right? He kind of got essentially scouted from uni. One of the guys at North does lecturing at uni there, and he sort of took a shine to this designer, and and he got the job there. And anyway, he was like that to me. He was like, "Oh mate, like I'm like back in the day, like you had like Cartledge Levine, like Bibliotech, like Spin, like Made Thought in those days as well. Like you had like these really amazing British like UK agencies." And then he topped off it then by saying like he was like, "I'm really into design history." And I was like, "Oh, mate, wasn't it that long ago? Jesus."
Design history.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
like, he was 29 or 28
Jeez.
or something. I was like, what has happened here?
Design history. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
honestly, man.
Actually, this is completely off tangent, but going back to that fact, the thing of like being into like Neville Brody when I was younger, like, at school, even like one day I was walking through Islington, with a couple of mates, and we looked through this window, and Neville Brody is sat on his computer at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and I'm like, what are the odds of that?
That's mental.
Yeah, completely mental. I don't know how I've ever looked through anyone's window in London. It just happened to be his window, and he was
Spot
sat,
them.
and I was like, God, that is dedication. Sat there, I don't know if he might have just been checking his email, but sitting there at like 10 o'clock on a Sunday night.
That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and whatever age is, I don't know. He was. I mean,
Getting on at that.
we were at school 20 years ago. So like, he's obviously, that was probably maybe 7. That was probably like 10 years ago now that I seen him. But it was. So that was quite off tangent, but you just said something that reminded me of that.
Yeah, I
story.
mean, that's awesome. That's a kind of really cool, like, full circle moment from the high school early days, and then journeying through, and then you actually spot the guy, like, which, to be fair as well, like, there isn't many notable names in the industry like that, and he was like, it was always like Brody, Carson, and then like maybe Sagmeister when we were coming through.
When we were at first year of uni, Sagmeister was kind of coming through, and he was like a big name, wasn't he?
Do you remember the Sagmeister talk in Edinburgh? Did you go to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool, eh?
And I reckon that probably had a big influence on me doing that sort of tactile, bespoke type stuff in my final year of like actually physical stuff, because I was probably influenced by that for sure.
Yeah, that's mad. So you did the internships, like 7 or 8, 9 months, like mad, like journey, like testing out all these different places. Did you do an internship at Deep, or did that come up as just like a separate thing?
Yeah, I did an internship there as well, and then I went away for a bit, and then they got me back in again.
Do you remember the first time you met Tim? Was he an absolute character straight away, or was he a bit more reserved?
Yeah, he was pretty much sort of how you know him. Now he was a bit of a character right away. Yeah, I just remember him being like really funny and just sort of like making the vibe of the place a little bit nicer, because it was just, everything was a bit of a laugh, but it's not like taking the piss. I just mean like just made it a little bit more relaxed, I'd say.
You've kind of touched on this on previous episodes. You've and said it in the intro as well. Like, you got me my first job in London, which was at Deep. So like, I think you'd been there maybe 4 years or something, and then I kind of like obviously had my kind of Australia thing, back to Dundee, and then I remember chatting to you. I was back in Dundee, like trying to like start my own thing. Had like 2 freelance things, and you were like, and then I didn't get any more, and you were like, mate, just come to London.
Yeah,
I'll get you some freelance. I was like, okay, like nothing to lose. I think I'm ready for it now.
Yeah.
Like, I think like initially, like in those first few years, like I think I wanted to stay in Scotland, to be honest. Like, I didn't really think of London.
Yeah.
I was quite daunted by it, but it seemed like, obviously you said like Glasgow was your initial idea, you know, closer to home, stuff like that, and there was really good studios. There still is like some really good places there, but then when you came to London, it felt like that fast-paced, like almost chaos, like energy. Like, you were really drawn to that end. Like, you kind of thrive in that sort of environment.
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of like, I don't know, when I was younger, I was quite sort of, I didn't have that much confidence. I was quite quiet and stuff like that. So I think I liked being thrown into like not my comfort zone, because I think that brought the best out in me. It forced me to come out my shell a little bit. And it was hard, especially when I was going into some of these like bigger agencies, and there was like sort of 40 faces sort of all working alongside me. So it was like, you kind of had to like make small talk and chat to all these people and stuff like that. So that kind of sort of made you be sort of try and grow in confidence a little bit, and sort of kind of force you to almost. So
It's quite nerve-wracking, eh?
Yeah, definitely nerve-wracking.
It's quite daunting, because like there's so much going on. Like, you're processing so many things at once. You want to make a good first impression, but you also want to just focus on the work. But you don't want to be. You want to be keen, but not too keen. It's just like, it's a lot to deal with at once, isn't it? Like,
and especially jumping around, it's like really. It's like you go on that first day, and you've got so much to sort of take in, and then like you might only do that internship for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later you're in another place and doing it. Like, I mean, you obviously, like, you're sitting there from doing years of freelance, and it sort of probably still doesn't get any easier. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing of like meeting new people, doing all this stuff, and yeah, it can be tiring.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think like getting out your comfort zone is, first of all, it's inevitable as a graphic designer. Like, you can't avoid it. Like, you need to do it, and it's as much as it is difficult, it's the best thing for you as well.
Yeah.
So like when you kind of kicked off at Deep, you know, obviously when you kind of start, like, you do a bit of freelance, and then you maybe get kind of like maybe more entry level briefs, so they kind of ease you in, right?
Yeah.
But was there a moment where you were kind of like challenged a bit more, or it started to click and you were like, yeah, I'm off the mark here?
We'd do quite a lot of pitches at Deep, so you'd have, and like normally for a normal project you'd always do like 3 routes. It's one thing that we at Fluoro don't really do much of. Whenever we do pitching, well, we don't really pitch, but whenever we do a project, we'll just sort of just do one route, and we'll all sort of chip into that route, and we'll make sure that route is like, we'll explore like routes in terms of like, we'll do a brand direction, for example, and we'll do maybe routes for that, and then once we've worked out the direction, then we'll put all that emphasis into one route. But
yeah,
back in the day, or agencies still do it now, but you'll have like your 3 routes, and then you'll maybe split that up between 3 designers and get their interpretation of it. So I think we done like a few pitches where everyone did like an idea, so there was kind of like 3 designers there, and as a junior, I think they thought, well, we'll give Eddie a route as well, so I'd sort of like chip in with my route for this pitch, and then on a couple of occasions we won the pitch, so not only did we beat the other agencies we're up against, like they also chose my route, so that sort of meant like when it came back in, like they sort of wanted me to lead the project, which was really good of them. They could have just taken that off me and then gave it to a senior and thought, oh, we'll just let them do that now. So it sort of meant like I took a little bit of a jump from like almost skip midweight from like junior to senior in terms of like leading projects, and like then sort of like taking that on from that point and sort of developing the whole project and being involved in everything from it. So yeah, that was probably the thing that helped me sort of like step up a little bit and like gain me quite a lot of experience quite early, which was really helpful.
Yeah, mate, that's so cool. Like, I think like I remember my time at Deep as well, and like the environment, like you said earlier, was so good. Like, it felt quite like obviously everyone's like super talented, they're kind of getting stuck in, but it felt very like a bit family, sort of like good vibes as well. But yeah, you would also get challenged as well. So I think that's the best way to do it, isn't it? Like, you kind of co-pilot a senior, and then eventually you get given your chance, and you've got to try and take it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously, like you said, you started winning pitches, or like your route gets chosen. I think it's really good that they let you lead it afterwards, because like you're saying, they could just go, okay, now you can go back to co-pilot mode.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, you run with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I got like obviously supported on that, and like when I need it, but it was actually really good to sort of like have a big project to lead, which was really good. So
you spent 5 years at Deep. Was it 5 years? 5 years in total?
Yeah, 5 years, yeah.
5 years, and you know, you earned your stripes, like you really kind of found your feet in London, and you were part of a team that you're a big part of the team, and you were really settled, but you decided, or you had that ambition to perhaps move on. What was kind of driving you to move on and take the leap and move on to Steve Edge Design?
So I think the main reason was just, I think 5 years anywhere for most designers, you feel like you've kind of got as much as you can out of the place, and sort of like learned as much as you can. You've sort of done enough of the same sort of projects and the same approach. So I think I was probably, first of all, just looking for something fresh, just to sort of break that up a wee bit. Second of all, kind of like, sort of to develop in your career, you want to sort of like learn from new people and learn new things and sort of new approaches. So I think it was kind of a mix of those two things. And then thirdly, it was probably at the time sort of going from like junior to sort of almost senior level after 5 years. It was like there wasn't really enough room for like 3 seniors there to have enough projects for us all to lead it and do the most enjoyable bit of the project.
Yeah.
So I sort of started looking around at my next move, and again it was kind of similar to the internship thing. It was like, do I go for like a sort of medium-sized company with a good reputation and try and get in there, or do I go like a similar-sized company to Deep, but one where they have got an opening for a sort of lead senior designer.
Yeah.
So I did some interviews at some decent studios, in that sort of medium sized bracket. Never really got them. So and then this sort of Edge one came up, and at the time it seemed like a good fit. It was like they had like a team of like sort of people who were just specialising in different things. They had like a web designer, they had someone just doing roll art, they had an art worker. Like you're coming in just to sort of like do this sort of main sort of part of the branding project, and it just sounded like kind of what I was after.
Steve Edge, character, but how was it working with him?
Yeah, it was good. He was a lot of fun. Probably like a ball of energy. Like considering he was like a bit older than all of us in the team, like he was probably had the most energy out of everyone.
Really?
But yeah, I think probably the thing I learned most from him was like how like to be around clients and sort of just kind of making them feel comfortable and like sort of really selling in the work. Like a lot of the time, like the work we do, like we're always a bit inferior about it because we see so much great design work out there, and we're always thinking, oh, we could have done better, and like there's like other stuff like that. But from a client's point of view, like they don't see the same world that we see. So like for them, like what you're showing them is like sort of still revolutionary. So like it's important, like kind of like what I learned from Steve is just like sort of be excited about the work and like really sort of show that you're proud of it and like and talk about it with passion and stuff like that. So I think I learned kind of probably that from him in terms of like just like bring the client along in that journey and just sort of make them think that you're super happy with this product that you're delivering to them, and then they're paying a lot of money for.
Especially like obviously we get a big range of clients. You can be big corporate ones, so you're dealing with like marketing teams or like CEOs or whatever. But like with startups, it's their baby, so to speak, right? Like they love it, and usually it's a case of like they've kind of cobbled together a bit of a brand themselves, or like they've done it on a low budget, and it's like they've got a bit bigger, and it's time to kind of do it properly. And like when they get that wow moment from a proper design studio, when you kind of really think about it and deliver that sort of brand that really speaks to them and amplifies their message, like it is an amazing thing.
Yeah, especially when you're working with like startups, and then a lot of the time it's people who have just put their own money into it, and like they're kind of like, this is like their big venture into this new business, and like they're hanging a lot on it. Whereas other people who are like marketing, people who are just sort of spending the company's budget, it doesn't feel as much pressure. I think the most pressure you feel as a designer when you're sort of producing someone's spent like hard-earned cash on, they've invested a lot of money just from that sort of single person.
Like I say, going from Deep, where you had a few other seniors there, you transitioned to Edge, and you were kind of the key figurehead of that design side of things. You were the main senior designer, right?
So yeah, so there was Tom, who was sort of creative director, as well as Steve, and then I was sort of like leading most of the design projects as like the lead designer.
Did that unlock any sort of like, now that it was like you've kind of got your own, you can put your full stamp on it, did that unlock any new kind of outputs for you, or did that kind of like, do you know what, I'm going to try and do it this way, I'm going to try and introduce something else? Yeah,
so I think probably the biggest thing that was good for my time there was sort of learning to do like some like video editing, because like you create all this brand work, and like we'd sit there and it'd be like time to come to present, and it'd be a little bit like death by PDF, sort of like flicking through, and it wasn't that engaging. So I sort of had this some time to sort of spend on like developing some skills in video editing, and I thought it'd be a really good way of sort of introducing like the brand work. So like I think the first one I ever done was literally just like some logos just flashing colours, but even that like had a little bit of interest to it that was different from just seeing something flat. So like I just kind of kept on kind of pushing it, and then eventually we were sort of like sort of round one of like branding, we were sort of like presenting it in this sort of video format where we'd take like all the sort of graphics that we'd done and sort of all the bits of the sort of video clips and sort of motion graphics, and just trying to create a little bit more engaging, putting it to music and timing it to music, and just kind of creating a bit of a emotion, a feeling. And it was such a good way to present in like a 1.5 minutes. You can kind of get across a snapshot of the whole brand and everything you're trying to say, some of the narrative, some of the strategy, all the visuals, and you can kind of get it all across and to kind of do that quite in a good way. Yeah, so you're like, that's the thing with a stage one presentation, right?
it's not often like, okay, here's the final thing. You're kind of creating a bit of a vibe, and you're setting a tone, right? And like you're saying, like back in the day, or like back then, like it was plodding through a PDF 1 page at a time, and people get caught up on like details when it's actually, don't think about the details right now. We'll solve them later.
Yeah.
We're trying to sell you this idea and this vision, and like you're saying, that energy and the timing it to music and stuff. I was going to ask you about this actually. So you're also a drummer, right? You've been in bands. You've kind of toured around and like done festivals and drummer. I think that comes through in your work a little bit, like especially with the fluoro stuff, which we're going to come on to. The way you edit and kind of like put it to beats and transitions and the type glitches, and like that's a big part of bringing it all together, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think some of the early projects we done at Fluoro were all sort of started to do that. It was all based around the music. That was the starting point. There wasn't anything that wasn't timed and changed scene with the music. So yeah, it probably did come from that, but I think it sort of helped connect everything and bring it all together. And yeah, like that skill that I learned there, and I was not gonna lie, I wasn't crazy good at it to start with, but I just kept on trying it and getting better. And each time we done it, learn new techniques and new things to bring into it. And there was almost like something in the basicness of it that made it more interesting. Like
Yeah.
I think if you went to like a editor or a motion designer and told them to do the same project, they would do something completely different. It was having that sort of like, it was almost like a moving poster almost. It was like something that's got like a layout and a craft element to it, but done in but moving. So it was different from how maybe other people approach it. So probably having like a more print based background and layout skills background, but then trying to push it and getting to this, it was sort of created this nice, interesting balance that was sort of unexpected.
Even though it was a unique thing, right?
Even though it was a little bit basic and some of it was a bit flashy, there was something in the basicness of it.
Yeah, I think having that sort of foundational grounding with the sort of Swiss principles and all that really kind of binds it all together. But then it gives it that energy and life, and it's like, I wonder if like, because you were looking at it through that graphic design lens and then trying this experimentation, it's the kind of genesis or origins of this new thing that you've created with fluoro, which is really amplified up now, and it's still got that sort of fusion of like the kind of solid branding, hardcore graphic design principles, and this kind of new age kind of expression and vibe.
Yeah.
Which is a unique proposition, right? I think it could be a good point at this stage to transition into how you started Fluoro. But before we get to that, so you were with Steve Edge for like 3 years or so.
I think 3 years, yeah.
So 3 years, you had a good time there. You really kind of honing your craft, and there became a point where you had another dilemma. You were thinking to yourself, do you know what? I quite fancy moving to New York. But you were also thinking, oh wait, I want to buy a house in London. And you were at that transitional phase, like a lot going on. And was this at the same time when Tim started Fluoro as well? Or did that come after?
It was all happening at the same time. So I think Tim sort of said, first of all, we went, he sort of mentioned it in passing, like, what's the idea of starting a studio? And I was like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. Like, should we sort of meet up and chat about it? So yeah, we booked in a sort of pub night to go and sort of chat about it, and it was exciting. Like, we were both kind of like talking of all these ideas of what we could be like, and kind of getting a bit excited and chatting about it. And I think we were kind of getting a bit carried away. And then at one point, sort of Tim went to the barman, like, he says he was starting to feel a bit drunk. He's like, the barman, how strong are these pints? And he's like, yeah, your ones are only 4%, but your mates are like 6.7. So he said he turned round, and I was just like sort of spread out on the sofa, like half collapsed. So I think we were kind of getting a bit carried away, skilling the drinks, chatting about it. But it was an exciting time. But I think for Tim, he'd become partner at Deep. He'd stayed there for a bit longer, so I think he'd been there like 9 years at the time. So
wow.
I think he was ready for this sort of new challenge, and all his ducks were in a row sort of thing. Whereas, as you say, I was sort of thinking of taking a year or two in New York. I'd sort of had a couple of interviews there, like over online, but and then, as you say, like other things were going on. Like I was trying to buy a house, and I'd moved out, and I was staying with friends and staying in student unions and all that sort of thing. So like that felt a little bit upside down as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, there was a point where I was just like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to take this on right now, but I was super excited about the idea. So I said to him, right, you you go start it, see how far you get, like see if you can get some clients, see if anyone's interested, see if you've got enough work, and then like when you take all the risk basically, and then as soon as you're ready, I'll come. So it was only a couple of months later, Tim was like phoning me every day, being like, right, I've got enough work now. You ready? You ready? I was like, right, I'm almost ready. So I think it was like 4 or 5 months after he'd started. There was like enough work for both of us then. So then I sort of went and transitioned, and that became the two of us then.
Wow, it's a big risk, right?
It came, yeah. So that was the other thing. It was like, is this the right move? But I guess it is a risk. But in our industry, like if you have a quiet week or two, you can just go to freelance. So although it is a risk, I feel like it's never too big a risk, and we're quite fortunate in that way of having an industry where you can just fall back on freelance.
Yeah.
If you've got a good folio, you know. So I feel like, yeah, there's obviously that idea of signing up to rents and investing too much that way for sure. But yeah, I think we were sort of wanting to give it a punt and see how we got to.
Yeah. I was just thinking, right, so did you want to do the kebab shop story, or have we missed it? Or if we can go back to it, we'll do it. Or if not, we'll just jump into like the early days of FLUORO.
Oh yeah, I forgot this. So there was after
you had the 6.7%.
After we had 6 or 7 pints of 6.7%. Yes. We went next door for some food, and Tim went first and he ordered his wrap, and then I went after him, and there was like seats in there. So we went and sat down, and then they called out, who's got a wrap? So Tim went up and got his wrap and sat down and started eating it. And then he finished his wrap. I was sitting there for another 5-10 minutes, and he's like, I'm going to have to go up and ask where your wrap is here. So he goes up to the counter, he's like, my mate's still waiting on his food, and she just sat leaning forward and went, he didn't order anything.
What, so you just went up to the bar and just went stood there and then went
didn't
down?
order anything, so that was...
Those early days at FLUORO must have been some buzz, man. Like you've taken the leap, you've kind of set up, and it was like, okay, let's make the most of this. But like, what were the early days like?
So it was kind of like, as you'd expect, it was sort of slow starting, working bits and bobs here and there, like just trying to get our feet, like sort of charging lower rates for everything, just trying to get some work in. But it was kind of tricky because we went from just doing design to like doing a bit of like networking, initial client meetings, calls, doing quotes, proposals. You know, like then when a project does come in, you're doing it from everything from start to finish, the direction, the design, the web design, the print stuff, like speaking to printers and liaising and the whole production side of things.
So the kind of business side of it, it's nothing to do with the actual craft, it's all the other stuff, right?
Yeah, so you're just sort of like learning these skills as you go and sort of like dipping into the business side of things and just keeping everything.
Do you enjoy that side of things? Like, because I feel like your brain is quite business savvy as well. Like your brain can see that kind of full picture, and do you kind of naturally take to that, or is it just like you kind of learn as you go and enjoy it along the way, sort of thing?
I think it was fine doing it for like we did it for like a year or a year and a half, maybe. Like, we did like a bit of everything, and then slowly we built the team and got junior designer and got like a project manager, and then sort of slowly started taking those bits off our plate a little bit. But
yeah,
I'd say it was good enough to get by, and I enjoyed it enough, but I wasn't wanting to keep it up for sure.
You just kind of like a needs must necessity sort of thing.
Yeah, and it meant now that you have all that knowledge of that side of the business as well, so when it does grow, you kind of like know how things are.
Yeah, you've kind of across it, you've kind of seen how it works. So do you remember the first kind of big project where you're like, we've landed something here, we've got something here, and we're off to a flyer now?
Yeah, so I think probably the first main project that we done was actually a pitch. It was to sort of rebrand I say rebrand, I think it was just brand the city of Wolverhampton. I don't think they had anything in place. They just recently became a city. And there was another agency who'd up north who'd done a few rounds of development on the brand identity, and it hadn't really gone down too well, so they decided to open it up to like a pitch of like 3 companies. So yeah, we found out about that through another, like an investor type person, and then he put that project forward for us. So we had to go up to Wolverhampton and pitch what we'd done, and kind of like going back to what I said earlier about the video thing. We basically put our idea. We had like a presentation as well, but we put our idea in like a 2-minute video, which sort of just sold in like what we thought made Wolverhampton unique, and we had went off and researched and found like loads of cool stuff. Like there was like these two little girls who were like break dancers, and like the energy they were bringing to the city and all these other cool things. And like one of the biggest influences we had at the time was like the branding for Glasgow. It's like people make Glasgow. It was a great one, and we're like, so I think we sort of leaned into that, and that was kind of a starting point of like we celebrated the people in Wolverhampton and their journeys and all the things that made them unique and things that the city provided, but through the people. So yeah, that was one of the starting points, and yeah, we decided to present this as like a sort of 2-minute video, and then like at the end everyone sort of loved it.
Loving it.
It went down really well. So they said the other companies we're pitching against, well, one of them was like McCann, who are like a big ad agency.
Yeah.
With design
They're
teams.
from Birmingham as well, which is quite nearby, isn't it? Like
Yeah, it's really nearby. I think they may have a few offices. They've got one in London as well.
Dubai as well.
But yeah, I think they were like a few hundred people, 200 people, maybe 100 something people. But
it was just used to.
so they said, they turned around and went, so how many people are your agency? And it was kind of like that bit in Home Alone 2, and he was just like, Sim, it's me.
Oh mate.
And they were like, okay, wow. So yeah, then we found out like the next day we won the pitch. So
Mind blowing.
that was after a good start, and then yeah, that was a great sort of confidence boost of like, yeah, oh, this is cool. This is something that people have heard of and know about. So that was cool.
Mate, so the studio's gaining traction, and it gets to the point where you need another designer. So you kind of like you're kind of looking for a new junior designer. So how did that come about? And how did that come about?
So we actually, our first office was on Brick Lane. We shared the studio with another agency. We were sort of like tucked away in the corner a little bit because there was just the two of us. But at the time they had like New Blood, who it used to be in, when I did it, it was like Kensington Olympia. So they'd moved over east, and it was in the Truman Brewery. So we went, actually went down to there after work one night and had a look around. And then our first point of call was going to Duncan Jordanson, checking out the talent there. And then I found folio from a person called Grace. Her work was really cool. We were kind of looking for someone who probably had strong typography skills and someone who had a bit of an edge and a bit of a vibe. And yeah, I was really drawn to her work. Thought it was really cool. Kind of wandered around the place after that, thinking, I'll find a few more people and then I'll contact a few people. But didn't really find anyone else that I thought was kind of sort of ticking all the boxes. So then contacted Grace, and she was based in Glasgow, but she was interested in coming to London. I can't remember, I think she might have already been coming down for an interview or some other internship already. So then we got her in for a couple of weeks, and then at that point we were kind of getting busier and busier, so it wasn't long before we just brought her in sort of full time.
Awesome. Just I think what we'll do is we'll do a part 2 because we're a bit short on time, but we can do a bit of a snapshot and an overview of the kind of key kind of projects that were in the kind of show reel. And we'll kind of dive deeper into them in the future as well. So look out for part 2. But yeah, like, is there any like mad projects from recent years that you're just like, I can't believe it, like these are insane?
So I think probably the biggest success we've had in terms of projects is we work with a company called R.A.D, who are performance footwear for the sort of training and CrossFit industry, and in recent times are moving into running as well. But they came to us, was it 4 years ago now? And it was just one guy called Ben who wanted to do this shoe, and we were like, this guy's mad, he's pumping all his money into this thing he's never had any experience in, and but he was like a bit of a visionary, he had loads of great ideas to start this, and he was like, sort of, it started off like slowly, but little bits here and there. We sort of worked on sort of brand narrative, and we actually even started working on the branding and then what the sort of product line could be, and we actually started helping him sketch out the product, and then he then took that to America, went and met with a product designer there and started developing the shoe. So that was sort of like 2 years in the making, and in that time we sort of worked on everything from like the sort of the brand positioning and narrative, sort of like the expression for all the outputs and advertising, like the packaging design for the first products and like apparel and all sorts of stuff. And over the last few years they've just got grown and grown and grown. They've been super successful now. They've went from like nothing to like multi-million-pound company. Yeah,
In
they're
4
absolutely
years?
smashing it, and we've been working with them the whole time, sort of doing everything. They've kind of kept with us, and we've done like loads of crazy cool stuff with them. Like each month they bring out like a different colorway of the shoe. They've got a new model now, but for like the first 2 years it was just the same shoe, different colorway. So we had to sort of keep reinventing new ways to sell these shoes and come up with these crazy concepts and ways to sort of put them out there, which was been really fun.
I think like that's the kind of big thing with like fluoro in it. It's like it's branding, but it's also advertising as well. So it's that kind of unique proposition of like, we'll do your brand, but actually we'll kind of stay with you. We'll stick around, and we'll kind of create all these campaigns and launches and kind of output, and like you've got that kind of diagram map of like your whole proposition, right? But I guess like being a small studio, you need to kind of cross different sections and different outputs and stuff, right?
Yeah, so we tended in the past to do sort of branding for like small companies and small startups, and then we'll do campaigns for like larger, more established companies. But I guess there's been a couple of crossovers, and R.A.D is a good example of that, of like sort of like having a holistic approach across all of it. So we do the branding, we do the advertising, we understand the whole process. But if you sort of set that initial bit up well enough, there's like lots of great pillars there for us to go off, and we sort of know. And even though with R.A.D, if you look at it, we've created a bit of like a brand energy there where everything sort of can look a little bit visually different, but it all sort of holds together and it all sort of falls on those same principles. So yeah, I think that's a good example of us working on both sides of the.
Is there any other key standout projects that come to mind?
I think probably there's been a couple of fun ones. Last year, was it 2 years ago, we done a project for Snoop Dogg, which was a little fun one. It was quite a kind of quick turnaround. He sort of said to us, whatever it is, it needs to be a dollar sign. So it was like we had a good brief. So yeah, we put that together fairly quickly, and then we sent him the first round. We were on a WhatsApp with him, and his first comment was, "It looks like a bag of Skittles." So we had to, basically by that, we used too many colours, so we had to strip it back, and we made it all a bit more black and white. And then we've also another project we done sort of about a year and a half ago now, is we done like a rebrand of Sweaty Betty. They kind of lost their way in terms of like their outputs, and they were sort of like, they had a few internal people who were like leaning into sort of like high fashion aesthetics, and they didn't know quite where their brand was sitting, and they'd sort of like kind of alienating the sort of people who'd bought into that brand from the start. So we came in and sort of like tried to sort of re-establish, take a step back and listen to what everyone there had to say, because they had a great knowledge of the business, and just find out what they sort of needed to get to in order to kind of get back on track. And it was more just about implementing some sort of positioning and narrative for us to hang out everything on. So we came up with this idea of don't sweat it, which was just enjoy it, be in the moment, all that sort of things, and kind of going back to the brand pillars of like sisterhood, movement, and joy, and and those three things were kind of like how we hung everything on. So then whenever we came to creating content, it was all about sort of focusing back on that, and like how we'd shoot stuff, or the feeling you would get, and like how the music would be on that video edit and stuff like that. And in terms of all the messaging that went on emails and how we spoke to people. So that was like the main part of the project, and obviously we then brought in like how the new structures in terms of layouts, and here's how the new logo type and scaling and all those little things, but they were kind of like an addition of like just fitting around that, kind of creating that feeling of people feeling as part of a community again for them.
We're going to end on a quick lightning round, which is just quick impulsive answers. Don't overthink it, just quick ones. So first one, Nike or Adidas? Adidas. Sans or serif?
Sans.
Any typefaces or foundries that come to mind?
Pangram.
Pangram, shout out them, they're good. Name an iconic album cover design that comes to mind.
Whoa, it's a tough one. We go Stereophonics, the Pixel Stretch one, can't remember what it's called.
Nice. Branding or advertising?
Branding.
And name a good online resource for designers.
Arena,
good shout. The last one, Larson or Lubo?
We have to go Larson.
Here we go. Eddie, thanks so much for coming, mate. Like, obviously you're a very busy guy, and I appreciate your time and you giving your kind of journey and insights. So like, what a story. Obviously we kind of like just touched on some bits, and you know, there's definitely more to unpack, so we'll potentially do a part 2, and we'll really dive deeper into the fluoro kind of journey as well. So yeah, mate, thanks so much for doing this, and top man.
No problem. Good to come and chat.
Thanks for watching, guys. Eddie Caldwell there, episode 1. Awesome story, awesome journey. If you would like to hear more kind of design journey sort of content and insights behind the portfolio, you know, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you in the next one.